Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Flip Community Conversation. My name is Jess Boyce. I'm your host for today, and I'm one of the Educator Innovation Leads on Team Flip. So for me, today is super duper special. Having 15 years of experience in the classroom, I know how important social and emotional learning is for student engagement and just for overall learning. And it's something that you'll hear me talk about all the time. I think relationships are super, super important. And then that is one of the first things we have to make sure that we're doing whenever we're dealing with students. And so I'm just so honored to dive further into this today. And I've got two incredible educators and dear friends with me, Ricardo Racinos and Teresa Castro. They're both technology coaches from California in the United States. So we're going to be sharing strategies and personal experiences, and I know that they're going to inspire you. So hello, my friends.
Hello, hello.
Hello, thank you for having us.
Oh my gosh, I am so thrilled that you're here. I know that this is going to be a super important and meaningful conversation for a lot of people. And those of you that are watching, before we get started, I just want to remind you that please be tweeting, be commenting on social, asking questions, telling us your ideas, because we love to hear from you and to share in this important conversation. So honestly, if you all are ready, let's just dive right into it. So very first question that I want to talk about is, why is social emotional learning important?
Well, social emotional learning is important because it gives our students the voice and the vocabulary to be able to express their feelings so that they can communicate effectively, understand one another, and get the support that they need. But honestly, SEL is so important to me personally because I did not have the best high school experience. I was kind of picked on and bullied for, being awkward, for being different. I was a language learner and things were different for me. And I just wish that, my educators were equipped with social and emotional learning skills so that maybe I would have a safe space to be able to reach out and express myself and ask for support that I needed. So that's kind of why it's so important to me.
Yeah, as I think about your story, Teresa, I think about my daughter. When she was in kindergarten, she was bullied and she didn't have the ability to write. So having video, when we talk about Flip, and if she would have been able to use that to communicate to her teacher, it would have made a difference. But, let's be honest, SEL isn't just one more thing to be added to the plate. It is the plate, right? Mm-hmm. Some people refer to SEL as those soft skills that we need, but in reality, they're essential skills that are not only going to help our students in their academic career, but also at work and in their lives, right? From helping them, how to make decisions, be self-aware, self-regulate. It's a foundation that we need to bring for them, again, for their academic success, but also for the real world.
And who are we kidding? SEL is important for us too, not just students, right? How many times do we get into conflict because, we're not mind readers. If we had the tools to open up the lines of communication, to share and to validate one another, I think that we live in a more peaceful world.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I just wrote down, it is the plate. I love that analogy because you're exactly right. That's the whole foundation of everything, right? And Teresa, to your point, I mean, as human beings, we also need that validation. We need those skills. We need to know how to communicate with one another, because if we don't have those skills, what else is there, right? Yeah, wow, those are both really good points. All right, so then my question for you is, how do you as educators, how do you encourage a safe space for your students?
I think creating a class culture based on trust is such key. And how do we do that? We do it through trust building activities, actively listening to our students. I know in my class, we always had a social contract that it was my kids and the teacher having a say in the rules and expectations, right? Because that makes them feel a sense of responsibility and connection, right? Obviously, respecting their feelings is huge. Encouraging open expression, celebrating diversity is always big with me. And also just creating a space where students are going to feel valued and respected.
I think I think teachers have been doing an awesome job for decades on emphasizing the basics like clear expectations, building those positive relationships. But I think in recent years, we've had to take it a step further in cultivating students who respect diversity,
Mhm.
who know how to listen to one another, are unafraid to speak out, to be their unique, quirky selves, right? And I think today we intentionally have to give them a safe space, whether it's a physical space like a calm room that we see on a lot of our campuses, or a mental space by providing opportunities to take a break or to be free to take a step back to process the information. And but the key word here really is intentional. Sell isn't something that just happens. It has to be taught explicitly and it needs to weave its way through every aspect of our day. Like Ricardo said earlier, it's not another thing on the plate, it is the plate.
Yeah, you're so spot on. And I think that, really that whole celebrating diversity and knowing that every single person that's in that classroom is bringing a unique perspective, but that how much we can learn from one another when it comes to that, right? And just this feeling of global empathy, and that just because you and I have different lifestyles or we come from different backgrounds doesn't mean that we can't learn from one another. And I think that that is a really important thing. And I mean, it's cyclical, right? It goes back to what you were both saying before of like, that's just 101 how it should be with anyone that we're interacting with, giving people the benefit of the doubt, knowing that that they bring their own unique experiences to the table in such a positive way. You're spot on. All right. So when we're talking about, I know you all call it SEL, I call it SEL, but when we're talking about SEO, but then also talking about Flip, I know that both of you are pretty avid Flip users. How have you used it in your classrooms or with educators that you're working with? How have you promoted SEL through the use of Flip?
How long is this show?
I know we could all talk all day about it, right?
We can go on and on. And, Flip is just one of those tools that students love to use. We go out there to teach Flip, and then every single time the students are teaching us about Flip because it's so intuitive and it gives them the space to express themselves, to share their creativity, and while showing mastery of any skills or standards that we're going over. But specifically, we've used Flip to teach different emotions with the help of the Feelings Monster. And students have created videos explaining situations where they've witnessed or have experienced different emotions. And this gives us a glimpse into who they are and a look into their world, right? There's so many other ways that we use it, and I'm sure we're going to try our best to cover as many as we can in this short amount of time together.
Yeah, as we think about the 3 self-signature practices, we've used Flip with welcoming rituals and check-ins, and we don't just do it with our students, we do it at PDs with the teachers, right? Give them that moment to check in. I know a specific teacher in 3rd grade, Miss Tammy, who uses Reflect and Teams and also Flip. The first 5 minutes, students come in, they can choose one or the other, open the video, they record, and after a while, they're creating this idea for her, how they're feeling, and creating a way for her to know what's going on in their lives with them, what could be wrong or what could be right with them. So that's a great way of doing it when it comes to welcoming rituals and check-ins.
Yeah, how beautiful is that? Knowing off the bat. I'm sorry, Teresa, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, no, that I love that story because we've seen it make such a difference with the kids, and she herself has said, like, this has just allowed me to check on my kids and make sure they're okay and check those few who might not be having the best day today, and so we love that.
Right. We've all had a student, right, who's acting some sort of way that day in the classroom, and we're like, what's going on? Why are they so out of sorts today? And there's always a reason, right? There's always something. So taking that couple of seconds, whether it looks like the check-in, using the Feelings Monster, having any kind of something, I mean, Flip aside, but checking in with your students just to know right off the bat is a super helpful thing. One story that I absolutely love to share is good friend of ours, Eric Garcia, who's in Bakersfield, California, has a topic that he calls My Inbox. So he teaches young kids. And, lots of times there's students who come in off the playground and they need to tell you something, right? Right away, they have to tell you, have to tell you. And sometimes it's like, I saw a caterpillar. And sometimes it's, I don't feel safe at home. And how do you decide who gets your attention at that moment, who's important enough to listen to or what have you, right? And so he set up this inbox that he keeps moderated all the time. It's at one flip topic. And so that's the space where the students know right off the bat, if I have something that I want to tell Mr. Garcia, I go to his inbox and I can record. And it can be that they saw a caterpillar, right? But it can also be something deeper than that. And because it's on moderation, it's never shared to any of the other students. It's just between them and him. And then he can watch those and he can respond appropriately. So if it's a deeper matter that he needs to get someone else involved, he's able to do that. But then he can also reply to the silly things as well. So it's not stifling anyone. It's giving the students that safe space and knowing that he cares and that he wants to listen to them. And I just think that it's something that's so powerful.
Yeah, I mentioned the welcoming rituals and check-ins, but also, when we talk about the second signature practice, engaging practices and brain breaks, our students using Flip to sing a song, right? To do rap battles, right? To dance, just to be silly and take that time to decompress, right? I know, Teresa, you have a great story of how we used it for engaging practices.
Actually, before I get into that, Ricardo, I just want to kind of tag on to what Jess was saying about having that inbox. That's a great idea, by the way. And
in the Discovery Library.
I always think back and I'm thinking, what, growing up in high school, if I had something like that, because you'll have those kids who want to share everything, but you'll have kids like me who didn't want to share anything or was too shy or I was afraid like they're not going to want to hear my story. It's not a big deal. But if I had these like little safe places where I could, then I would. And I think that would have changed my whole experience. And the fact that our kids have that today. And I always pray in my mind that my kids have teachers who offer those opportunities. So they don't have to go through an experience like I did, and they feel safe and they feel happy, through their education. And so, thank you for sharing that. I think I'm going to add that to my little.
Yeah, of course.
I love
and
it.
so I said really quickly, that's in the Discovery Library. If you all are not familiar with that, when you're in your Flip dashboard in the right-hand side, if you click on your little icon and you drop down to Discovery, there's almost 50,000 templates of ready-made topics. I'm sure you all have looked at it and experienced the magic that is the Discovery Library. But I know that topic is in there. So you can actually go in and just make it your own, and then it becomes completely editable too. So lots of that. There's lots of feeling monsters, lots of incredible SEL options in there. But go ahead, Teresa, let's hear your story.
Yes, guilty, definitely guilty. I think we've shown some of our teachers and they're like, what? This is already prepared. And they're already using those pre-made templates and just kind of making it their own. And that we love that so much. But I think the last category was optimistic closures when it comes to the three categories. And, Ricardo, what did you think optimistic closures was a few years ago when we started talking about this?
I always thought it was just a closing ticket, right? And I think I had to learn more about what the purpose of optimistic closures were.
And you're not wrong. I mean, that is part of it, but that's just kind of under the umbrella. There's so many more when it comes to optimistic closures. And on top of reflecting on what is learned, the big aha moment for me is that optimistic closures can also be students having them ask, what's next? What comes after this? Or what are your wonderings? Or what does this mean to me? Right? What did this lesson or unit mean to me? And what does it have to do with my real world? So for me, that's kind of taking it a little step beyond the exit ticket, right? What have they learned and how does it have a place in their lives?
Yeah, and we've seen our teachers move from just being the only ones watching these videos when they're ready and the class culture is ready to allowing our students to look at those optimistic closures, right? When our students are recording or reflecting something on Flip, then their classmates come in and they actually give feedback, that positive feedback, right? And what a better way, to show our students how to experience, what the other student is feeling right, and be able to build empathy through that.
Wow. Yeah. I think it's so great when we provide students with this opportunity to hear from one another, to, like you said, that empathy there, right? And so I had never heard of these closures before. Say it again.
Oh,
Op-
optimistic closures. And I say
Optimistic
it wrong
closures.
every
Okay.
time. I had to really
I had never heard of that before, but I love that idea. And, it made me think of when I was in the classroom, I taught math, and one of their assignments every single week was to talk about, they had to record a flip video talking about the mistakes that they made that week. I just wanted to know, like, where did you go wrong? Because I wanted them to be in the habit of knowing that mistakes are a really beautiful thing. And that's how we learn, not just in math, but in life in general. And so just getting them in the habit of talking about them then provided this safe space that, oh, I made this mistake, but so did somebody else. And they had a connection based on that, right? Of just that empathy that, like, here's something that you did, but also realizing that I'm not alone in the things that I'm doing.
Right. Yeah, I just want to share one more story, if that's
Yeah.
okay
Oh
with
my
you.
gosh.
I just
Share away.
it came to mind, and it's so for some of those teachers who are still like, I'm not sure, if I have time to do this, but there is this student that I remember very clearly. He who went through the system. We sometimes have those kids who are like, am I going to get him in my class? He didn't really have a voice in class, and he had a hard time expressing himself. And teachers were like, oh, I don't know exactly what to do with this student. And when the pandemic came, it really changed things for the student because distractions were kind of out of the way, and teachers were forced to use tools like Flip during that time. And it gave the student like a whole new perspective. So all of a sudden, the student who didn't want to say anything, all of a sudden wants to express everything through Flip. And not just, this is how far it went, to a student who participated nada in class, and all of a sudden he wanted to try out for the speech and debate team. And not only did he try
Wow.
out, he actually placed. And so here's a student who went through so many years of schooling, who was labeled as a student who just does not want to have anything to do with school, to all of a sudden love being part of class because a tool like this was introduced. So just stories like that happen all the time. And we're so happy that our kids have that opportunity.
That's unbelievable. And, such a testament too to we have those preconceived notions, those inherent biases, those things that are in the back of our mind. Unfortunately, we all have them, right? But recognizing that and being able to take steps of like, no, whenever I would get my roster and people wanted to tell me, oh, I'm like, don't tell me. I don't want to know anything that you think about any of these students. These are my students, and let's let them have a fresh
Right.
slate. And, so as him having that label too of like not wanting to participate in things, what a special thing to see. I'm sure that it like filled you with pride to see him placing and all of that.
Oh, I know teachers were amazed. And I think we underestimate the value of tools like this because, this made a huge difference. And it could have made a difference of him, having this horrible experience for the rest of his years. But he's making friends. There's people in class who are like encouraging him and want to be part of it. And, that wasn't the case prior to this. So something so
Man. And that's part of the Flip mission, is to make learning fun and empowering for all students. And that, first of all, the word empowering, right? But then also for every single person. We want to make sure that everyone feels empowered. And so the fact that he was, that is really incredible. And I honestly have a super similar story with one of my students who has autism and really struggled with being able to connect with his peers and have conversations. And when he would get behind the space and be able to record on a Flip video these beautiful articulate conversations, and they got to know each other so much deeper based on taking away the additional distractions of speaking face to face. So thank you for sharing. I love it. Absolutely love it. All right. So, well, is there anything else before I move on to the next question?
There's always more, but
Any other
feel free to move on.
Okay. I'm sure we've got lots of goodness with this one too. So when we think of self-expression or self-awareness, what do you think are some creative ways that we can empower students to be able to share their thoughts, to be able to share their emotions, really that empower word, giving them that opportunity to speak?
I think, honestly, I think students love to share what they think and what they feel. Just some students are more shy than others, right? So we want to empower them by giving them tools like this to feel safe and comfortable to express themselves. And Flip's just a great tool. So we're going to go over some of the things that,
Yeah, and I know Jess mentioned the Discovery Library, right? These are some ways that we've done it, but the Discovery Library is right there. The new feature with Copilot, right, using artificial intelligence to create your topic is right there too. But we've seen our teachers with digital journals, right? Vlogs, emotion check-ins have been great. Creative expression, just letting our students share their artwork, their poetry, their music, right? Showing that artistic expression to help communicate thoughts and emotions is big.
Yeah, and personal narratives is also a big deal to be able to kind of talk about yourselves. It includes like self reflection and self awareness, but mindful moment exercises. And, we've seen people actually use Flip to ask their students to record themselves engaging in some practices like deep breathing, meditation, guided visualization, things like that.
Yeah, we talked about this one before, but cultural and global awareness, right? Facilitating discussion about cultural diversity and global issues, right? Encouraging our students to talk about their own cultural backgrounds really helps them promote self-awareness. And, we also discussed peer feedback and support.
And earlier we talked a little bit about goal setting and reflection. So we already talked about that, but gratitude and positivity. We've actually seen these templates already there and teachers using these templates, asking kids, what are you grateful for? Whether it's inside of the classroom, outside nature, anything, just kind of grounding them in gratitude and giving them that perspective.
Yeah, just Flip is just the perfect tool, to allow students for self-expression and self-awareness, honestly.
And I think too, I will just continue to tie it back. How those are such great practices for us too. I know our friend Jogitsa has a topic specifically about mindfulness, and same kind of thing of just, allowing us that space in order to do it. Sometimes we get so busy and can't make that space. And I'm reminded of a coworker of mine who would teach, would start a lot of his classes with just having the whole class do some deep breathing and just like calming down, especially after lunch, right? Like, let's take a minute, let's all calm ourselves, and then we can start from there. One thing that I did in my classroom is I had what I called an affirmation station. And so I got, I didn't do it on Flip, and I kept like thinking of what ways can I do this? And I never did, but I had it, in person. And so I took those, you remember like the little library cards that would be in the back of the book that you would take out and stamp, whenever you had to return them back in the day. And so I bought a bunch of those from Michael's or whatever, and I had them write their names on them, and we put them on the wall. And then I encouraged them just like as they were noticing different things to like write little notes to each other. And just, hey, I loved the way you solved that problem today, or thank you for standing up for me, or something like that. But the very first way I did it was I had them write to themselves. And just, I was like, we're our harshest critic. And honestly, they were the most beautiful things of just like, I am confident, I am strong, I can do this, and just reminding themselves. But then also, doing it with their peers. And I kept thinking like, oh my gosh, this could be a really, really cool thing to do on Flip, because then they would have those videos for as long as they needed them, and they could rewatch them when they needed that little confidence boost or something like that.
I love that. And that's a great Flip idea if anyone wants to make it.
I need to add it. I need to add it to the Discovery Library. I've thought about that. But I think really just fostering that, it goes back to the safe space that we were talking about. I think that is just the ultimate thing. It is such an important place to make sure that your students know when they walk in the classroom that they are completely safe with you. All right. Well, this was a little bit of a whirlwind, fast and furious. I know that we all have a lot of thoughts about social emotional learning. But before we head out, do either of you have any last minute stories that you'd like to share, or any final thoughts for the good of people?
So many. But at the end of the day, we just want to ensure that every student is heard and feels supported and cared for. And we know that it's never a one size fits all. And I think tools like Flip allows them to be themselves and to have a voice while also having fun learning.
Yeah, we're really fortunate to have wonderful tools, as Teresa mentioned, like Reflect or Flip, right? They not only help our students academically, right, but they contribute so much to their social and emotional well-being, right, by fostering inclusion, safety, and a sense of belonging.
Absolutely love it. Well, thank you both so much for being here. Reminder that you can follow both of them on social. You'll see their handles and then down below as well. But this is just a super special conversation. So thank you both so, so much for your wealth of knowledge and for sharing some inspiring stories with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And one more thing for you all as well, that we have some more inspiring conversations that are coming up, as well as getting started sessions for anyone that's new to Flip. So you can actually go to aka.ms/flip events, and you'll be able to check out our calendar. So tomorrow we have the Ultimate Teacher Guide to Flip, which is especially helpful for those who are just starting out. And then join us next week for tips on how to maximize Flip in your Google Classroom. And you'll be able to, when you go to that site, you'll be able to find out all about our upcoming and on-demand events for your classroom. We're honored to have some incredible speakers and organizations that are joining us almost every week to inspire you and your students. And then also to continue your learning, but then also keep this conversation going to connect with our community, please consider joining the Think It Flip It group, where we have a group to share ideas and resources on how you can use Flip in your classroom. And that is just at flip.com/thinkitflipit. Thank you so, so much for being here. This was super special, and I look forward to hearing from you all different tips and ideas of how you can promote social emotional learning in your classroom, especially through Flip. Have a wonderful week.